Greetings, my fellow freedom lovers, sovereign thinkers. Thank you for tuning in to LO3 Podcast. My name is Craig, transmitting from the wild and wonderful Mountain State. And today's date is Monday, May 24th, 2021. Yeah, so things are in progress in my place, the building we bought, and it's just get really hot in certain times. And hey, some of the guys, my neighbors have different tolerance, which is understandable. We've been through it on hot days, and there's times you don't need to get a heat stroke over it, but it will pursue, and it's looking good. So gotta be patient. Hey, I'm my own landlord, my own boss. All right, so comes to tyranny, we should always pay attention. Doesn't matter if it's federal, state, or local. Looks like bizarre world out there. Doesn't matter where you're at. We're seeing everywhere here in the United States, Canada, Mexico, all over Europe and Asia. Doesn't matter. There's really nowhere to run or hide. We have to choose our battlegrounds wisely. This is just an example. I want to be narrating by John and Natasha Whitehead. Nija Whitehead from the Rutherford Institute. I am a supporting member, and I encourage everyone to do the same. Organize the unorganized. So, this is what it says here, he wrote. Drivers beware the deadly perils of blank check traffic cops. The Fourth Amendment was designed to stand between us and arbitrary governmental authority for all practical purposes. That shield has been shattered, leaving our liberty and personal integrity subject to the whim of every cop on the beat, trooper on the highway, and jail official. The framers would be appalled. Herman Schwartz from The Nation. We've all been there before. You're driving along and you see a pair of flashing blue lights in the rearview mirror. Whether or not you've done anything wrong, you get a sinking feeling in your stomach. You've read enough news stories, seen enough headlines, and lived in the American police state long enough to be anxious about any encounter with a cop that takes place on the side of the road. For better or worse, from the moment you're pulled over, you're at the mercy of law enforcement officers who have almost absolute discretion to decide who is a threat, which constitutes resistance, and how harshly they can deal with citizens they were appointed to serve and protect. This is what I call blank check policing, in which the police get to call all the shots. So if you're nervous about traffic stops, you have every reason to be. Trying to predict the outcome of any encounter with the police is a bit like Russian roulette. Most of the time, you will emerge relatively unscathed. Although decidedly poorer and less secure about your rights, but there's always a chance that an encounter will turn deadly. Try to assert your right to merely ask a question during a traffic stop and see how far it gets you. Juanisha Brooks, black, 34 years old, and on her way home at 2:20 a.m., was pulled over, handcuffed, arrested, and charged with resisting arrest, eluding police, reckless driving, and failure to use headlights after repeatedly asking police why she had been stopped. When Brooks, a Department of Defense employee, filed a complaint, prosecutors conceded that the traffic stop had been carried out without proper legal basis and dropped all charges. Karen Nazario, an uniformed Army officer returning home from his duty station, was stopped for not having a rear license plate. His temporary plates were taped to the rear window of his new SUV. Nazario, who was black and Latino, pulled over at a well-lit gas station, only be pepper sprayed, held at gunpoint, beaten, and threatened with execution. Zachary Knoll was tasered by police and charged with resisting arrest after he questioned why he was being ordered out of his truck during the traffic stop. "Because I'm telling you," the officer replied before repeating his order for Noel to get out of the vehicle and then, without warning, shooting him with a taser through an open window. Despite complying with all police officers when ordered to show his identification and exit his parked vehicle, Jarrell Edwards was subjected to excessive force and brutality, including being thrown to the ground, tasered and placed in the chokehold that rendered him unconscious and required his hospitalization for 3 days. Although the dash camera video of the arrest confirmed that Edwards was peaceful, did not defy police orders, and did nothing to provoke police, a federal court ruled that Edwards' trouble understanding police directions during the encounter constituted resistance. That justified the force used by 4 police officers involved in the violent arrest. Edwards is an African American. Gregory Tucker, also black, was stopped by police for a broken taillight, only to be thrown to the ground, beaten and punched in the face, body more than 20 times, and then arrested and hospitalized for severe injuries to his face and arm, all for allegedly resisting arrest to be driving to a safe, well-lit area in front of his cousin's house before stopping. No wonder Americans are afraid of getting pulled over by police. Mind you, all these individuals complied with police. They didn't do it fast enough to suit their purposes. At a time when police can do no wrong, at least in the eyes of the courts, police unions and politicians depended on their votes, and fear for officer safety is used to justify all manner of police misconduct. We the people are at a severe disadvantage. At a traffic stop to the mix, and that disadvantage increases dramatically. According to the Justice Department, the most common reason for a citizen to come into contact with the police is being a driver in a traffic stop. On average, 1 in 10 Americans gets pulled over by police. According to data collected under Virginia's new Community Policing Act, black drivers are almost 2 times more likely than white drivers to be pulled over by police, and 3 times more likely to have their vehicles searched. As the Washington Post concludes, driving while black is indeed a measurable phenomenon. Historically, police officers have been given free range to pull anyone over for a variety of reasons. This free-handed approach to traffic stops has resulted in drivers being stopped for windows that are heavily tinted, for driving too fast, driving too slow, failing to maintain speed, following too closely, improper lane changes, distracted driving, searching a car's tire, and leaving a parked car door open for too long. Motorists can also be stopped by police for driving near a bar on a road that has large amounts of drunk driving a certain make of car. Mercedes, Grand Prix, and Hummers are among the most ticketed vehicles. Having anything dangling from the rearview mirror, air fresheners, handicap parking permits, toll transponders, or rosaries, and displaying pro-police bumper stickers. Interesting, right? Incredibly, a federal appeals court actually ruled unanimously in 2014 that acne scars in driving with the stuffed upright posture are reasonable grounds for being pulled over. The Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals ruled that driving a vehicle that has a couple of air fresheners, rosaries, and pro-police bumper sticker at 2 miles per hour over the speed limit is suspicious, meriting a traffic stop. Equally appalling, in Helen versus North Carolina, the U.S. Supreme Court which has largely paved the way for the police and other government agents to probe, poke, pinch, taser, search, seize, strip, and generally manhandle, anyone they see fit in almost any circumstance. Allow police officers to stop drivers who appear nervous, provided they provide a plausible pretext for doing so. Justice Sonia Sotomayor was a long objector in the case, dissenting in Helen. Sotomayor warned, giving officers license to effect seizures so as long as they can attach to their reasonable view of the facts some reasonable legal interpretation or misrepresentation that suggests a law has been violated significantly expands the authority. One wonders how a citizen seeking to be a law-abiding citizen and structure his or her behavior to avoid these invasive, frightening, and humiliating encounters could do so. Well, she has a good point there. Hey, and I'm not really crazy about her in certain things, but she's right. In other words, drivers beware. Traffic stops aren't just dangerous, they can be downright deadly. Remember Walter L. Scott, reportedly pulled over for a broken taillight. Scott, unarmed, ran away from the police who pursued and shot him from behind, first with a taser, then with a gun. Scott was struck 5 times, 3 times in the back, once in the upper buttocks, and once in the ear, at least one bullet entering his heart. Samuel Du Bois, also unarmed, was pulled over for a missing front license plate. He was reportedly shot in the head after a brief struggle in which his car began rolling forward. Lever Jones was stopped for a seatbelt offense. Just as he was getting out of his car to enter a convenience store, directed to show his license, Jones leaned into his car to get his wallet, only to be shot 4 times by a fearful officer. Jones was also unarmed. Bobby Canopy was pulled over for having an expired registration. When the 70-year-old reached into the back of his truck for his walking cane, the officer fired several shots at him, hitting him in the abdomen. Dontrell Stevens stopped for not bicycling properly. The officer pursuing him thought the way Stevens rode his bike was suspicious. He thought the way Stevens got off his bike was suspicious. 4 seconds later, Sheriff's deputies Adams Lynn shot Stevens 4 times as he pulled out a black object from his wristband. The object was his cell phone. Stevens was unarmed. Sandra Bland, pulled over for allegedly failing to use her turn signal, was arrested after refusing to comply with the police officer's orders to extinguish her cigarette and exit her vehicle. The encounter escalated when the officer threatened to light Bland up with his taser. 3 days later, Bland was found dead in her jail cell. You're doing all of this for a failure to a signal? Bland asked as she got out of her car after having been yelled at and threatened repeatedly. Keep in mind, from the moment those lights start flashing and that sirens goes off, we're all in the same boat. However, it's what happens after you've been pulled over that's critical. Survival is key. Technically, you have the right to remain silent beyond the basic requirement to identify yourself and show your registration. You have the right to refuse to have your vehicle searched. You have the right to film your interaction with police. You have the right to ask him to leave, ask to leave. You also have the right to resist an unlawful order, such as a police officer directing you to extinguish your cigarette, put away your phone, and stop recording them. However, there is a price for asserting one's rights. That price grows more costly with every passing day. If you ask cops and their enablers what Americans should do to stay alive during encounters with police, they will tell you to comply, cooperate, obey, not resist, not argue, not making threatening gestures or statements, avoid sudden movements, and submit to a search of their person and belongings. Unfortunately, there are no longer any fail-safe rules for engagement, for interacting with the police. In the police state, compliance is no guarantee that you will survive an encounter with the police with your life and liberties intact. Every day we hear about situations in which unarmed Americans complied and still died during an encounter with police simply because they appear to be standing in a shooting stance or held a cell phone or a garden hose or carried around a baseball bat, or answered the front door, or a spoon in a threatening manner, or held a spoon in a threatening manner, or ran in an aggressive manner, holding a tree branch, or wandered around naked, hunched over in a defensive posture, or made a mistake of wearing the same clothes as a carjacking suspect, dark pants and a baseball jersey, or dared to leave an area at the same time that a police officer showed up, or had a car breakdown by the side of the road, or were deaf or homeless or old, More often than not, it seems as if all you have to do to be shot and killed by police is stand in a certain way, or move a certain way, or hold something, anything that police could misinterpret to be a gun, or ignite some trigger-centric fear in police officers' mind. This has nothing to do with the actual threat to their safety. Now you can make all kinds of excuses to justify these shootings. And in fact, that's exactly what you hear from politicians, police unions, law enforcement officials, and individuals who are more than happy to march in lockstep with the police. However, to suggest that a good citizen is a compliant citizen and that obedience will save us from the police state, it is not only recklessly irresponsible, but it's also diluted and out of touch with reality. To begin with, and most importantly, Americans need to know their rights when it comes to interactions with the police, bearing in mind that many law enforcement officers are largely ignorant of the law themselves. A good resource is from the Rutherford Institute's Constitutional Q&A of Engagement for Interacting with Police. In a nutshell, the following are your basic rights when it comes to interaction with the police as outlined within the Bill of Rights. You have the right under the First Amendment to ask questions and express yourself. You have the right under the Fourth Amendment not to have your person or your property searched by police or any government agent unless they have a search warrant authorizing them to do so. You have the right under the Fifth Amendment to remain silent, not to incriminate yourself, and request an attorney. Depending on which state you live, whether your encounter with police is consensual as opposed of you being temporarily detained or arrested. You may have the right to refuse to identify yourself. Not all states require citizens to show their ID to an officer, although drivers in all states must do so. As a rule of thumb, you should always be sure to clarify in any police encounter whether or not you're being detained, i.e., whether you have the right to walk away. That holds true whether it's a casual show your ID request on the boardwalk, a stop and frisk search on a city street, or a traffic stop for spending or just check your insurance. If you feel like you can't walk away from a police encounter of your own volition, and more often than not, you can't, especially when you're being confronted by someone arrested to the hilt with all manner of militarized weaponry and gear, then for all intents and purposes, you essentially are under arrest. From the moment a cop stops you, still it doesn't hurt you to clarify their distinction. Well, technology is always going to be a double-edged sword. With the gadgets that are most useful us into our daily lives, GPS devices, cell phones, the internet, being very tool used by the government to track us, monitor our activities, and generally spy on us. Cell phones are particularly useful for recording encounters with the police and have proven to be increasingly powerful reminders to police that they are not all powerful. Knowing your rights is only part of the battle, unfortunately. And he's an author of the book Battlefield America. I encourage people to check it out. And I'm going to add a memo to that too on fairdui.org. They're a good website, and the person that started was a DUI attorney in Florida, believe it or not. And he, if I remember, he does have information on other states too, on procedures, on how to be pulled over from a routine traffic stop. And I encourage people. There's a lot of states, okay, including Florida and West Virginia, for example. Maybe I believe Pennsylvania. A lot of states. If you get pulled over, You can display your license, registration, and proof of insurance. You don't have to submit it to the police officer. All right, so that'll be under fairdui.org. I will add that to the memo. And I always look at the human element as well. It's not going after police bashing or anything like that. Well, you have everything's being like dumbed down, you could say. And we're all being victims of that one way or the other. And like I said, I know they have their lives on the line as well. But I'm not, defending certain officers' actions. Okay, there's some things I just scratch my head, and my stepfather was a former officer, so police officer, deputy, DE agent, and all that, and we have a good dialogue, we have good discussion in these areas. So always gotta look at the human element. But the whole thing is, folks, you all have the right to be vigilant. Educate, agitate, organize. The more you know about your rights, the more you exercise it, the less you fear. That's essential. Of course, don't have to exhibit yourself honorably, too. Let them scream and yell and threaten you all you want. We all have different emotions, but always got to counter it. Be methodical. I was a ball buster myself one time. However, no bitterness. I could say that. Truth of the matter is, pay attention, have your gadgets, and utilize it. Because they're trying to use it on you, use it against them. In name of principle. And it's sad too, because remember, a lot of folks assume you can't do that. So that will be it. I thank everyone for listening. Plus, feel free to download and share throughout your social media networks. If you have any questions, comments, we send something that's interesting you want to check out, whatever you do, please send your correspondence to Quorum. Furthermore, I'll leave the footnotes of the article and fairdui.org on my speaker page. If you want to contact me, you can hit me at LokiLuckNumbers03@protonmail.com. Or if you want to send donations, you can hit me at paypal.me or cash.app/LokiLuckNumber3. And I do encourage people to donate to the Rutherford Institute. And trust me, it's good to know these things and have these contacts. And another thing as well, always look at your state constitution, especially your Declaration or Bill of Rights on these matters. All right, once again, thank you for your time. Plus, always remember that demoniac resistance is healthy for the soul and can liberate humanity. Until next time, take care of yourselves. Keep on spreading love. And may your guardian spirits be with you.